The girl's hands were raw and bleeding when the rancher found her collapsed in his stable, a half-eaten apple core clutched in her dirt-streaked fingers. It was June 1876 in Sierra City, New Mexico Territory, and the summer heat had already begun its merciless assault on everything living. The stable smelled of hay and horse sweat, and dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that pierced through gaps in the wooden walls. Yates Ingram stood in the doorway, his worn boots planted firmly in the dirt, staring down at the small figure who had managed to clean 3 stalls before exhaustion had claimed her. He was 32 years old, weathered by sun and hardship, with hands that knew the weight of a rope and the comfort of a horse's neck. His wife had died 2 years prior, taken by fever, and his only son had followed her 6 months later. The ranch had become a place of ghosts and silence, 20,000 acres of New Mexico scrubland that stretched toward mountains in the distance. He employed 15 men to work the cattle, but the main house echoed with emptiness that no amount of livestock could fill. The girl could not have been more than 17 or 18, though it was hard to tell beneath the grime. Her dress was little more than rags stitched together, and her feet were wrapped in cloth that had once been white. Dark hair hung in tangles around a face that might have been pretty if it was not so gaunt. Yates knelt beside her, checking for breath, and found it shallow but steady. "Girl," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "Girl, wake up." Her eyes fluttered open, revealing startling green irises that seemed too bright for such a wan face. Fear flooded those eyes immediately, and she scrambled backward, pressing herself against the stable wall. "Please, mister, I was just cleaning. I was not stealing nothing but that one apple, and I was so hungry. Please do not call the sheriff. I will work it off, I swear." Yates held up his hands, showing empty palms. "Nobody's calling the sheriff. When did you last eat a proper meal?" The girl's thin shoulders trembled. "I do not rightly remember, maybe 4 days ago. A woman in town gave me some bread that had gone hard." "What's your name?" "Vera Catherine, sir. Vera Kendall. My folks died of cholera last year up in Colorado. I've been making my way since then, working where I can, moving when I have to." Yates studied her for a long moment. Something in her eyes reminded him of a wild horse he had once gentled, that same mixture of pride and desperation. She was trying so hard not to cry, biting her lower lip until it went white. "You are coming up to the house," he said, standing and offering his hand. "You are going to eat a real meal, get cleaned up, and then we are going to talk." Vera stared at his outstretched hand as if it might be a trap. "Why would you do that? You do not even know me." "Because I found you bleeding and starved in my stable, and I will not have that on my conscience. Now come on before I change my mind and you miss out on the beef stew my cook made this morning." The mention of beef stew seemed to break through her resistance. She took his hand, and he pulled her to her feet. She swayed slightly, and he steadied her with a hand on her elbow. The main house was a sprawling adobe structure with thick walls that kept out the worst of the heat. Yates led Vera through the front door into a large room with exposed wooden beams crossing the ceiling and colorful woven rugs on the floor. A massive stone fireplace dominated one wall, cold now in summer, but clearly well used during winter months. An older Mexican woman emerged from what Vera assumed was the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyes widened when she saw the bedraggled girl. "Dios mío, Señor Yates, what have you brought home?" "Found her in the stable, Rosa. She needs food and a bath in that order." "Can you help her out?" Rosa's stern expression softened immediately. She hurried forward, clicking her tongue in maternal disapproval. "So skinny. Come, child, come. We will fix this." The beef stew was the most delicious thing Vera had ever tasted in her life. She tried to eat slowly, remembering her mother's lessons about manners, but her stomach had other ideas. Rosa kept refilling her bowl, and Yates sat across the long wooden table, nursing a cup of coffee and watching her with an unreadable expression. "Senor Yates," Rosa said, her voice carrying a note of gentle chiding, "you should not stare. Let the poor girl eat in peace." "I am just thinking, Rosa." He turned his attention to his coffee, but Vera felt his presence like a physical thing. He was a big man, not just tall but broad through the shoulders, with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of whiskey. His hair was dark brown, touched with silver at the temples, and he wore the clothes of a working rancher, nothing fancy but well-made and sturdy. After the third bowl of stew and half a loaf of fresh bread, Vera finally pushed back from the table. Her stomach ached from the unaccustomed fullness, but it was the best pain she had felt in months. Rosa led her to a bathing room where a copper tub sat waiting. Hot water was poured from kettles, steam rising in clouds, and Rosa provided soap that smelled of lavender and a clean dress that was too large but could be belted at the waist. "This was Senor Yates's wife's dress," Rosa said softly. "She was a bigger woman than you, but it will do for now. Tomorrow we can see about altering some things to fit you properly." Vera sank into the hot water and nearly cried at the luxury of it. She scrubbed away months of dirt and despair, watching the water turn brown around her. When she finally emerged, clean and dressed, her dark hair falling damp down her back, she barely recognized herself in the small mirror on the wall. Yates was waiting in the main room, standing by the cold fireplace with one arm resting on the mantel. He turned when she entered, and something flickered across his face too quickly for her to identify. "Sit down, Vera," he said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs. "We need to talk." Vera sat, her hands folded in her lap, prepared for him to tell her she needed to move on come morning. Instead, he took the chair opposite her and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "How old are you?" 18, sir. Turned 18 last March. "And you have no family, nobody at all," she shook her head. "My parents were only children themselves, and their parents all passed before I was born. It was just the three of us, and then the cholera came, and then it was just me." Yates was quiet for a moment, his jaw working as if he was chewing on words he was not sure how to say. Finally, he looked up and met her eyes directly. "My wife died 2 years back. My son 6 months after that. This ranch has been a lonely place since then, too big and too quiet. I employ good men to work the cattle and Rosa keeps the house, but it is not the same as having family." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I am not a man who believes in coincidences, Vera. I think you were meant to come here. I would like to offer you a place in my home, not as a servant but as family. I would like to adopt you as my daughter, legal and proper, if you are willing." Vera stared at him, unable to process what she had just heard. "Sir, I do not understand. You do not know anything about me." "I could be a thief or worse." "Are you a thief?" "No." "Then that settles that. Look, I am not saying this right. I know it is sudden, but when you get to be my age, you learn to trust your instincts. I looked at you in that stable, and I saw someone who was not giving up despite having every reason to. You were working, even though you were starving, trying to earn your way instead of just taking. That tells me what kind of person you are." He ran a hand through his hair, looking almost embarrassed. "I cannot bring back my son, and you cannot bring back your parents, but maybe we can help each other build something new. What do you say?" Vera felt tears sliding down her clean cheeks. "I do not know what to say. Yes. Yes. If you truly mean it, then yes, 1,000 times yes." A smile broke across Yates's weathered face, transforming it entirely. "Good. That is good. We will ride into Sierra City tomorrow and speak to the lawyer, make it all legal and proper. You will be Vera Ingram, and this will be your home for as long as you want it." That night, Vera slept in a real bed for the first time in over a year. The room Rosa showed her to was spacious, with whitewashed walls and a window that looked out over the ranch. The bed had a thick mattress and clean sheets that smelled of sunshine. She lay in the darkness, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the house settling around her, and could not quite believe that her luck had changed so dramatically in the span of a single day. The next morning dawned clear and hot. Yates was already up when Vera emerged from her room, dressed in the borrowed dress and feeling awkward about everything. He smiled when he saw her, a genuine warmth in his expression that made something in her chest unknot slightly. "Morning, daughter," he said, testing out the word. "How does that sound?" "Strange," she admitted. "But good strange." They rode into Sierra City in a wagon pulled by two sturdy horses. Yates kept up a steady stream of conversation, pointing out landmarks and boundaries of his property. The ranch was called the Running Eye, named for the brand they used on the cattle. He ran mostly longhorns, tough animals that could survive the harsh New Mexico climate, and he was slowly building up a reputation for quality beef. Sierra City was a typical frontier town, a single main street lined with false-fronted buildings. There was a general store, a saloon, a hotel, a blacksmith, and a white-painted church at the far end. People stopped to stare as Yates helped Vera down from the wagon, and she felt the weight of their curious gazes. The lawyer's office was above the general store, reached by an exterior staircase. Edmund Marsh was a thin man with spectacles and ink-stained fingers who listened to Yates's request with raised eyebrows but no judgment. "This is highly unusual, Yates, but not illegal. If Miss Kendall is of age and willing and you are sincere in your intentions, I can draw up the papers. There will need to be a waiting period and a hearing before a judge, but I see no reason why it would not be approved." The process took most of the morning. Papers were signed, statements were made, and Edmund promised to file everything with the territorial court. Afterward, Yates took Vera to the general store and insisted on buying her proper clothes, new boots and sundries she might need. The storekeeper's wife, a plump woman named Mrs. Harrison, helped Vera pick out 3 dresses, undergarments, and a wide-brimmed hat to protect her face from the sun. "You are very generous," Vera said as they loaded the packages into the wagon. "I do not know how I will ever repay you." "You already have," Yates said simply. "You gave this old house a future again. That is worth more than a few dresses and boots." As they drove back toward the ranch, a group of riders approached from the opposite direction. Yates tensed slightly, his hand moving toward the rifle he kept under the wagon seat, but then he relaxed. "It is just Daniel and some of the boys from the ranch," he said. The riders pulled up alongside the wagon. The man in the lead was younger than Yates, maybe in his late 20s, with sandy blonde hair and blue eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He wore typical cowboy gear, leather chaps over denim pants, a faded blue shirt, and a battered hat that had seen better days. "Boss," he said, tipping his hat to Yates. Then his eyes found Vera and his smile widened. "And who might this be?" "This is Vera," Yates said, and there was unmistakable pride in his voice. "My daughter. Vera, this is Daniel Young, my foreman, and these are some of the men who work the Running Eye." Daniel's eyes widened in surprise, but he recovered quickly. "Well, this is unexpected news, but mighty fine news at that. Welcome to the Running Eye, Miss Vera. If you need anything at all, you just let me know." There was something in the way he looked at her that made Vera's cheeks warm. She ducked her head, suddenly shy. "Thank you, Mr. Young." "Just Daniel, please. We are not much for formality around here." He glanced at Yates. "We are heading out to check the north fence line. Old Pete thought he saw some breaks yesterday. Good. Take care of it. We will see you boys back at the house for supper. As the riders moved on, Vera could not help but glance back over her shoulder. Daniel was doing the same, and when their eyes met, he grinned and tipped his hat again before spurring his horse into a trot. Daniel is a good man, Yates said, as if reading her thoughts. Been with me 5 years now. Best foreman I have ever had. He is honest, hardworking, and smart about cattle. I trust him with my life. How old is he? Vera asked, trying to sound casual. 28, I reckon. Lost his parents to influenza when he was young, worked his way up from nothing. Reminds me a bit of myself at that age, all ambition and determination. Yates cut her a sideways glance, a slight smile playing at his lips. Why do you ask? No reason. Just curious. Uh-huh. Well, just so you know, I will not have any man courting my daughter unless he proves himself worthy. Those are the rules. Vera felt her face flame even hotter. Mr. Ingram, it is Papa now, he said gently, or Father if you prefer, and I am teasing you, girl, mostly. But I am serious about the worthy part. You deserve the best, and I aim to make sure you get it. Something warm bloomed in Vera's chest. She had forgotten what it felt like to be cared for, to have someone worry about her future and her happiness. Papa, she said, testing the word. Papa Yates. His smile was brilliant. That is perfect. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Vera threw herself into learning everything about the ranch. Rosa taught her to cook proper meals, to preserve vegetables and fruits, to manage a household. Yates taught her about cattle, horses, and the land itself. She learned to ride, though her first few attempts ended with her in the dirt, and the ranch hands trying unsuccessfully to hide their laughter. She learned which horses were gentle and which were temperamental, how to tell if a cow was sick, and how to read the weather by watching the sky. Daniel Young seemed to be everywhere she turned. He was patient when she asked questions, quick to offer help when she struggled with something, and always respectful. But there was something else too, a warmth in his eyes when he looked at her, a tendency to find reasons to be wherever she happened to be working. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after Vera's arrival, she was in the corral trying to saddle a mare named Daisy. The horse kept sidling away, and Vera was growing frustrated, her arms aching from holding the heavy saddle. Here, let me help, Daniel's voice came from behind her. He vaulted over the corral fence with easy grace and crossed to where she stood. Daisy is particular about how her saddle sits. She needs a firmer hand than she has been getting. He did not take the saddle from Vera, but instead stood close behind her, guiding her hands with his. She could feel the heat of him against her back, smell the clean scent of soap and leather that clung to him. There, feel that. You have to be confident with her. She is testing you, seeing if you will give up. The saddle settled onto Daisy's back properly, and the mare stood still, as if she had never been causing trouble at all. Daniel stepped back, and Vera felt the loss of his presence like a physical thing. Thank you, she said, turning to face him. I would have been here all afternoon trying to figure that out. You would have gotten it eventually. You are stubborn in the best way. He pulled off his hat and ran a hand through his hair, suddenly seeming unsure of himself. Miss Vera, I was wondering if maybe you would like to go riding with me sometime. Not for work, I mean. Just to see some of the prettier parts of the ranch. There is a canyon about an hour's ride from here with a waterfall that runs year-round. It is real peaceful. Vera's heart hammered in her chest. I would like that, but I should ask Papa Yates first. I do not want him to think I am being improper. Daniel's face broke into a wide smile. I already asked him. He said it was fine as long as we are back before dark and you are properly chaperoned. I figured we could ask Rosa to pack us a lunch, and maybe one of the other hands could ride along to keep everything respectable. You already asked Papa. Well, I was not going to just assume. Your father is a good man and he cares about you. I wanted him to know my intentions are honorable. And what are your intentions, Daniel Young? He looked at her steadily, his blue eyes serious. To get to know you better, Miss Vera. To maybe court you proper if you are agreeable and your father approves. I know it has not been long since you came here, and maybe it is too soon, but I cannot seem to help myself. You are all I think about. Vera felt dizzy with the rush of emotions. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, with such direct honesty. I think I would like to get to know you better too, she said softly. The ride to the canyon happened 2 days later. Yates had insisted that Charlie, one of the older hands, accompany them, but Charlie had the good sense to ride far enough behind to give them privacy while still maintaining propriety. Daniel had not been exaggerating about the canyon's beauty. They rode through scrubland that gradually gave way to rocky terrain, following a narrow trail that wound between red stone formations. The air grew cooler as they descended into the canyon, and the sound of running water echoed off the walls. The waterfall was not large, perhaps 20 feet high, but it was a miracle in this dry land. Water cascaded down smooth stone into a clear pool, surrounded by cottonwood trees and lush green vegetation. Daniel helped Vera dismount, and they settled on a flat rock near the water's edge. Rosa had packed fried chicken, biscuits, and peach preserves, and they ate while watching the water dance and sparkle in the sunlight. I came here a lot after I first started working for your father, Daniel said, breaking a comfortable silence. There was something about this place that felt safe, like the rest of the world could not touch it. It is beautiful, Vera agreed. Thank you for bringing me here. There is a lot of beauty in this country if you know where to look. It can be harsh and unforgiving, but it is honest about what it is. I have always appreciated that. He picked up a smooth stone and turned it over in his fingers. Can I ask you something personal? I suppose so. What was it like being on your own for a year? That must have been terrifying. Vera was quiet for a moment, remembering. It was the loneliest I have ever been. After my parents died, I tried to keep going like everything was normal, but people in our town looked at me differently. I was a reminder of death, I think. And there were men who saw me as something they could take advantage of. So I left. I walked most of the way from Colorado to here, working odd jobs when I could find them, sleeping in barns and under bridges. There were days I thought about just giving up, lying down somewhere and letting nature take its course. But something in me refused to quit. My mother used to say that Kendall women were made of iron and starlight, too tough to break and too bright to dim. I held on to that. Daniel reached over and took her hand, his calloused palm warm against hers. I am glad you did not give up. I am glad you ended up here. So am I. She looked down at their joined hands, feeling the rightness of it. Daniel, do you really want to court me, or were you just being polite because Papa asked you to be nice to me? He laughed, a surprised bark of sound. Miss Vera, your father did not ask me to do anything of the sort. In fact, he warned me off, said you were too young and had been through too much to be dealing with some lovesick cowboy. I told him I would be patient and respectful, but I would not pretend I was not interested. You are strong and smart and beautiful, and I think you might be the bravest person I have ever met. So yes, I really want to court you if you will have me. Vera felt tears prick at her eyes, but they were happy tears. She squeezed his hand. Then you may court me, Daniel Young. And I will look forward to seeing where this leads. They stayed by the waterfall for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about growing up in Texas, about learning to rope and ride before he could properly read. He told her about coming to New Mexico territory looking for work and finding a home at the Running Eye. Vera told him about her parents, about the good memories before the cholera came, about the little things she remembered that made them human and real. When they finally rode back to the ranch, with Charlie trailing behind at his respectful distance, Vera felt lighter than she had in years. The future, which had seemed so bleak and uncertain for so long, now stretched ahead with possibility. Yates was waiting on the porch when they returned. He watched as Daniel helped Vera dismount, noting the way they stood close together, the way they looked at each other. When Daniel had ridden off to see to the horses, Yates beckoned Vera to sit beside him on the wide porch swing. "Did you have a good time?" he asked. "Yes, Papa." The canyon was beautiful and Daniel was a perfect gentleman. "He is a good man," Yates said. "But you are still young, Vera. There is no need to rush into anything. You have a home here for as long as you want it, whether you marry or not." "I know that, Papa, and I am not rushing." "But I cannot help how I feel. Is that wrong?" Yates put his arm around her shoulders and pulled her close. "No, sweetheart, it is not wrong. It is just that I only got you a few weeks ago and I am not eager to lose you to some cowboy, even one as decent as Daniel. You will not lose me. This is my home now. Even if I do marry Daniel someday, I am not going anywhere. This is where I belong." He kissed the top of her head. "You are a good girl, Vera Ingram. I am proud to call you daughter." Summer turned to fall and the relationship between Vera and Daniel deepened. They took rides together every Sunday after church, always properly chaperoned but finding ways to steal moments of privacy. They held hands when no one was looking, shared secret smiles across the dinner table, talked for hours about their dreams and fears. Yates watched their courtship with a mixture of pride and melancholy. He had meant what he said about not wanting to lose Vera, but he could see that she and Daniel were genuinely falling in love. It reminded him of his own courtship with his late wife, that heady mixture of excitement and certainty. In October, the ranch held a harvest dance in the big barn. Rosa and Vera spent days decorating, hanging lanterns and colorful bunting, while the men moved equipment out and swept the floors clean. Families from neighboring ranches came, along with townsfolk from Sierra City. There was a fiddle player and a man with a guitar, and soon the barn was filled with music and laughter. Daniel found Vera standing at the edge of the dancing, watching the swirling couples with a wistful expression. She wore a new dress, pale blue with white lace at the collar and cuffs, and her dark hair was pinned up in a way that made her look older and impossibly beautiful. "May I have this dance, Miss Vera?" he asked, offering his hand with exaggerated formality. She laughed and took his hand. "I should warn you, I am not very good at this. We did not have many dances back in Colorado. Then we will learn together." He led her onto the makeshift dance floor, one hand at her waist and the other holding hers. They stumbled a bit at first, trying to find the rhythm, but then something clicked and they were moving together smoothly. Daniel pulled her closer than was strictly proper, and Vera did not object. "I love you," he said quietly, the words meant only for her. "I know it has not been long, but I am certain of it. I love you, Vera Ingram." Vera's breath caught. "I love you too, Daniel. I think I have since that first day when you rode up to the wagon and smiled at me. I want to marry you. I know I should wait longer, be more proper about it, but I cannot stand the thought of wasting time when I am so sure. Will you marry me, Vera? I already spoke to your father, asked his permission. He said yes, but only if you truly want it." "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I will marry you." Daniel swept her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy. The other dancers stopped to stare, and then someone realized what was happening and let out a whoop. Yates came striding over, trying to look stern but failing miserably. "I take it she said yes." He asked Daniel. "She did, sir." Yates turned to Vera, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Are you sure about this, daughter? You are only 18. You have your whole life ahead of you." "I am sure, Papa. I have never been more sure of anything." He pulled her into a fierce hug. "Then you have my blessing, both of you. Daniel, you take care of my girl, you hear me? She is the most precious thing in this world." "I will, sir. I swear it on my life." The wedding was held in November at the little white church in Sierra City. The whole town turned out, along with all the hands from the running eye and families from the neighboring ranches. Vera wore a white dress that Rosa and Mrs. Harrison had spent weeks making, with delicate embroidery and seed pearls sewn into the bodice. Daniel wore a new suit, his hair slicked back, looking nervous and happy in equal measure. Yates walked Vera down the aisle, his hand firm on her arm. He had to stop halfway to compose himself, overcome with emotion. When he placed Vera's hand in Daniel's, his voice was rough. "You are getting the best woman I know. Do not ever forget that." "I will not, sir. I promise." The ceremony was simple but beautiful. The preacher spoke about love and commitment, about building a life together through good times and hard. When Daniel kissed his bride, cheers erupted through the church. The reception was held back at the ranch, in the same barn where they had danced at the harvest party. There was food and music and dancing late into the night. Yates made a speech that had everyone laughing and crying, talking about how Vera had brought life back to the running eye, and how Daniel had proven himself worthy of that gift. Daniel and Vera spent their first night as husband and wife in the foreman's house, a smaller adobe building about 100 yards from the main house. Daniel had spent the past month fixing it up, making it comfortable and homey. There was a large bedroom, a sitting area, and a small kitchen. It was not grand, but it was theirs. "Are you nervous?" Daniel asked as he carried her over the threshold. "A little," Vera admitted, "but excited too. I get to spend the rest of my life with you. That is all I want." He set her down gently and cupped her face in his hands. "I will try every day to be the husband you deserve. I will work hard. I will protect you. I will love you with everything I have. And I will do the same for you." Their first kiss as husband and wife in their own home was soft and sweet, full of promise. They had all the time in the world now, and they intended to make the most of every moment. Winter came to New Mexico territory with cold winds and occasional snow. The ranch work slowed during these months, giving everyone time to rest and prepare for the busy spring ahead. Vera and Daniel settled into married life with surprising ease. They worked side by side during the day, Daniel handling the ranch operations while Vera helped Rosa manage the household and learned more about running a large property. Yates moved through his days with renewed purpose. Having Vera and Daniel on the ranch had filled the emptiness that had haunted him for so long. He ate dinner with them most nights, either at the main house or in their smaller home, and the conversation flowed easily. He was no longer just a rancher with no one to leave his legacy to. He was a father and, increasingly, a father-in-law who took genuine pleasure in the happiness of his children. Christmas of 1876 was a joyous occasion. Vera and Rosa decorated the main house with pine boughs and colorful ribbons. There was a large tree in the main room, hung with candles and ornaments. Yates gave Vera a beautiful leather-bound journal and a set of fine pens, encouraging her to write down her memories and thoughts. To Daniel, he gave a new saddle hand-tooled with the Running Eye brand and Daniel's initials. Daniel gave Vera a delicate gold locket with space for 2 pictures inside. "One for us now," he explained, "and one for the future, when we have children of our own." Vera's gift to Daniel was a warm wool coat she had spent months making in secret, with help from Rosa. The stitching was careful and precise, and she had embroidered his initials on the inside collar. When he tried it on, his eyes grew bright with emotion. "It is perfect. You are perfect." The new year brought changes. In January, word reached Sierra City that a railroad spur was being planned that would connect the town to the main line. This was huge news for ranchers like Yates, who currently had to drive cattle hundreds of miles to market. If the railroad came through, they could ship their beef directly, saving time and money. Yates began making plans to expand the herd, to take advantage of the new opportunities. He consulted with Daniel on every decision, treating him more like a partner than an employee. In February, Yates made it official, drawing up papers that gave Daniel a 10% stake in the running eye. "You are family now," Yates explained when Daniel protested that it was too generous. "This ranch will belong to you and Vera someday. I want you invested in its success, not just working for wages." Daniel was overwhelmed. "I do not know what to say, sir. This is more than I ever dreamed of. Just keep taking care of my daughter and this ranch. That is all the thanks I need." Spring arrived with a riot of wildflowers blooming across the scrubland. The cattle were fat and healthy, and Yates contracted to sell 500 head to a buyer in Santa Fe. The drive would take 2 weeks, and Daniel would lead it, taking most of the ranch hands with him. The night before Daniel was set to leave, he and Vera lay in bed in their small house, wrapped in each other's arms. "I am going to miss you," Vera said, tracing patterns on his bare chest. "I will miss you too. But it is only 2 weeks, and when I get back, we will have money to make some improvements to this house. Maybe add another room or two." Vera bit her lip, trying to decide if she should tell him. She had been fairly certain for a week now, but she had wanted to wait until she was completely sure. But with him leaving in the morning, she could not keep it to herself any longer. "We might need that extra room sooner than you think," she said quietly. Daniel went very still. "Vera, are you saying what I think you are saying?" She nodded, suddenly nervous. "I think I am with child. I have not seen Rosa yet to confirm, but all the signs are there. Are you happy?" He let out a whoop and pulled her on top of him, kissing her soundly. "Happy? I am the happiest man alive. When? How far along?" "Only about 6 weeks, I think, so we have a long time to wait. The baby should come in October or November." Daniel cradled her face in his hands, his eyes shining. "You are going to be the most amazing mother. Our child is so lucky." "I am scared," she admitted. "What if something goes wrong? What if I am not good at it? You will be wonderful. And you have Rosa and your father to help. And I will be here, every step of the way. We are going to do this together." The next morning, Vera stood with Yates and Rosa to watch the men ride out with the herd. Daniel looked back several times, lifting his hand in farewell, and Vera waved until he was out of sight. "He will be fine," Yates said, reading her worried expression. "Daniel knows what he is doing, and the men respect him. They will get the cattle to Santa Fe and be back before you know it." "I know. I just wish he did not have to go right now." Rosa, who Vera had told about the baby that morning, patted her arm. "This is the life of a rancher's wife, child. There will be many times when your man has to be away. You must learn to be strong and patient." The 2 weeks passed slowly. Vera threw herself into work around the ranch, helping with the horses and the remaining cattle, working in the vegetable garden Rosa had planted behind the main house, and continuing her lessons in household management. At night, she lay alone in the bed she shared with Daniel, one hand resting on her still flat stomach, imagining the life growing inside her. Yates was overjoyed when she told him about the baby. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing like a man half his age. "A grandchild. I am going to be a grandfather. This is the best news I have had in years. You are not disappointed it is so soon. Daniel and I have only been married 6 months. Disappointed? Why would I be disappointed? Babies come when they come, and this one will be loved and cherished from the moment it draws its first breath. True to Daniel's estimate, the men returned exactly 2 weeks after they had left, tired and dusty, but successful. The cattle had been sold for a good price, and Daniel carried a leather pouch heavy with gold coins. Vera ran to meet him as he dismounted, throwing herself into his arms with such force that he staggered backward. "Easy there, wife. I am covered in trail dust and probably smell like the back end of a cow. I do not care. I missed you so much." That night, after Daniel had bathed and eaten and greeted everyone properly, he and Vera retreated to their house. He kept his hand on her stomach as they talked, marveling at the idea of their child growing there. "Did you think of any names while I was gone?" he asked. "A few. If it is a girl, I thought maybe Sarah after my mother, and if it is a boy, perhaps Thomas after your father. Those are perfect names. Sarah or Thomas Young, our baby." The summer of 1877 was hot and dry, but the ranch prospered. Yates used the money from the cattle sale to buy more land, extending the running eye's boundaries even further. He also made improvements to the main house and helped Daniel and Vera build 2 additional rooms onto the foreman's house, creating space for the coming baby and future children. Vera's pregnancy progressed normally, though the heat made her uncomfortable. Rosa prepared special cool drinks and made sure Vera rested during the hottest parts of the day. Yates fussed over her constantly, much to her amusement and occasional exasperation. "Papa, I am pregnant, not made of glass. I can still work. Not too much work. You need to save your strength for when the baby comes." Daniel was even worse, treating Vera as if she might break at any moment. She finally had to sit him down and explain that women had been having babies since the dawn of time, and she was strong and healthy. "I know that," he said. "But you are my wife, and that is my child. I am allowed to worry." In September, when Vera was large and uncomfortable and eager for the pregnancy to be over, a letter arrived from the territorial courthouse. The formal adoption papers had finally been processed, making Vera officially and legally Yates's daughter. The delay had been frustrating, but now it was done. Yates framed the papers and hung them in the main room of his house, where everyone could see them. Vera Ingram, his daughter by choice and by law. It was official in every way that mattered. The baby came on a cool October evening, just as the sun was setting behind the distant mountains. Rosa attended Vera, having helped deliver dozens of babies over her lifetime. Daniel paced outside the bedroom, wearing a path in the dirt, while Yates sat on the porch and tried to appear calm. The labor was long but not overly difficult. Vera was young and strong, and she bore the pain with remarkable fortitude. When the baby finally slipped into the world, announcing its arrival with a lusty cry, Rosa called out the news. "It is a boy, a fine, healthy boy." Daniel rushed into the room, not caring about propriety. Vera lay exhausted but beaming in the bed, holding a tiny, squirming bundle. He crossed to them and looked down at his son for the first time. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was red-faced from crying, with tiny fists waving in the air. "He is perfect," Daniel breathed. "You are perfect. I love you so much." "Thomas," Vera said. "Thomas Daniel Young." "What do you think?" "I think it is the best name in the world." Yates came in a few minutes later, moving slowly as if afraid to disturb the sacred moment. When he saw the baby, his face crumpled and tears ran freely down his weathered cheeks. "My grandson," he said in wonder. "Can I hold him?" Vera carefully transferred the baby to her father's arms. Yates cradled the tiny boy with surprising gentleness, cooing nonsense words and swaying gently. Thomas quieted, his dark eyes trying to focus on this new person. "Hello there, little man. I am your grandfather. I have been waiting a long time to meet you." The next few months were a blur of sleepless nights and endless wonder. Thomas was a good baby, healthy and curious about the world around him. Vera took to motherhood with natural grace, nursing and caring for her son while still managing to help around the ranch when she could. Daniel was a devoted father, spending every free moment with his wife and child. Yates was equally smitten with his grandson. He commissioned a beautiful cradle from the carpenter in Sierra City and bought a ridiculous number of toys and clothes. Rosa made tiny quilts and knitted blankets, and even the ranch hands took turns stopping by to meet the newest member of the Running Eye family. Life settled into a new rhythm. The ranch continued to prosper. The railroad spur was completed in early 1878, and the first shipment of Running Eye cattle went out by train to Denver. The prices they received were excellent, and Yates began planning for even further expansion. In the spring of 1879, Vera discovered she was pregnant again. This time she was calmer about it, more confident in her body's ability to bring forth new life. Thomas was a happy toddler now, walking and beginning to talk, and she could imagine him with a little brother or sister to play with. Their second child, a daughter they named Sarah Rose, was born in December of 1879. She had Vera's dark hair and Daniel's blue eyes, and her grandfather declared her the most beautiful baby ever born. Thomas was fascinated by his little sister, wanting to hold her and touch her constantly. The years rolled by, each one bringing new joys and challenges. A third child, another son named James, arrived in 1881. The foreman's house was bursting at the seams now, and Daniel and Yates worked together to build a larger home for the growing family, still on the Running Eye property but with enough space for their expanding brood. In 1883, Yates fell ill with pneumonia. It was a bad winter, and the sickness hit him hard. For 2 weeks, he lay in his bed, feverish and struggling to breathe. Vera and Rosa took turns nursing him, applying cool cloths and forcing him to drink broth. Daniel managed the ranch operations while worrying constantly about his father-in-law. When Yates finally turned the corner and began to recover, the first thing he said was, "I am not ready to go yet. I need to see my grandchildren grow up." "You are not going anywhere," Vera told him firmly. "You are too stubborn to die, and we need you too much." He recovered slowly but surely, and by spring he was back on his feet, though he tired more easily than before. The illness had aged him, adding more silver to his hair and lines to his face, but his spirit remained strong. That summer he made a decision. He called Daniel and Vera to the main house and spread papers across the big wooden table. "I have been thinking about the future," he said. "I am not getting any younger, and that sickness reminded me that I will not be around forever. I want to officially make Daniel a full partner in the Running Eye, not just 10% but 50-50. This ranch belongs to both of us now, and when I am gone, it will be entirely yours and Vera's to pass on to your children." "Yates, I cannot accept that," Daniel protested. "This is your life's work. You built this from nothing. And I want it to continue after I am gone. You are like a son to me, Daniel. You and Vera have given me everything I thought I had lost. This is not charity. This is family taking care of family. Say yes, or I will just do it anyway and not ask your opinion." Daniel looked at Vera, who nodded encouragingly. "Say yes, husband. Papa has made up his mind, and you know how stubborn he is." "Fine. Yes, but only if you promise to stop talking about being gone. You have years left in you, old man." Yates laughed. "I hope you are right, son. I surely do." The Running Eye continued to grow and prosper throughout the 1880s. The railroad connection made shipping cattle easy and profitable, and Yates and Daniel reinvested the profits into improving the ranch. They built better housing for the hands, dug new wells, and even installed a windmill to help pump water for the livestock. Vera became known throughout Sierra City as a gracious and capable woman. She helped organize charity drives for families in need, taught Sunday school at the church, and managed the running I's accounts with a sharp eye for numbers. She and Daniel added 2 more children to their family, twin girls born in 1885 whom they named Lucy and Emma. By 1890, Sierra City had grown from a frontier town to a thriving community. There was a school now, and a bank, and even a small hotel for travelers. The territorial government was stable, and there was talk of New Mexico seeking statehood, though that would not happen for many years yet. Yates was 66 years old that summer, still active but definitely slowing down. He spent less time on horseback and more time on the porch of the main house, watching his grandchildren play in the yard. Thomas was 16 now, already working alongside his father and learning the ranching business. Sarah was 10, smart as a whip and determined to go to college someday. James was 9, adventurous and always getting into trouble. The twins were 5, identical in appearance but completely different in personality. One evening in late summer, Vera sat on the porch with her father, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Daniel was out checking on some new calves, and the children were inside with Rosa, getting ready for bed. "Do you remember the day we met?" Yates asked suddenly. "Of course I do. I was half-starved and terrified trying to clean your stables for a scrap of food. And you took me in and changed my entire life. I had a feeling about you right from the start. I knew you were special. I just did not know how special." He reached over and took her hand. "You gave me a reason to keep going, Vera. After Margaret and Thomas died, I was just existing, not really living. Then you came along, and suddenly I had a future again. And then you married Daniel and gave me grandchildren, and my life became fuller than I ever imagined it could be. You saved me, Papa. I would have died on the road somewhere if you had not found me. Everything good in my life comes from that day." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Then Yates spoke again, his voice soft. "When I am gone, I want you to scatter my ashes here on the running I. This land is part of my soul. I want to stay here forever." "Papa, do not talk like that. I am not being morbid, sweetheart. I am just being realistic. I have lived a good, long life. I have loved and been loved. I have built something that will outlast me. Not many men can say that. When my time comes, I will go peacefully, knowing that everything I care about is in good hands." Vera's eyes filled with tears. "I am not ready to lose you, and hopefully you will not for a long while yet. But when it happens, I do not want you to be sad. I want you to celebrate the life we have had together, the family we have built. Promise me that." "I promise, Papa." Yates lived for another 8 years, active and engaged until the very end. He saw Thomas marry a lovely girl from a neighboring ranch in 1895. He saw Sarah head off to a women's college in Denver in 1897. He played with his great-grandchildren, Thomas and his wife having blessed the family with a baby boy in 1896. In the fall of 1898, Yates simply did not wake up one morning. Rosa found him in his bed, peaceful and still, a slight smile on his weathered face. He was 74 years old and had died exactly as he had lived, on his own terms. The funeral was one of the largest Sierra City had ever seen. People came from hundreds of miles away to pay their respects to a man who had been a pillar of the community. Daniel and Vera stood together, their children around them, and said goodbye to the man who had brought them all together. True to his wishes, they scattered his ashes across the running I, in places that had been meaningful to him. Some went by the main house, some in the canyon with the waterfall, and some in the wide open spaces where the cattle roamed. Yates Ingram became part of the land he had loved so much. Life continued, as it always does. Daniel took over full management of the running eye with increasing help from Thomas. Vera remained the heart of the family, keeping everyone connected and grounded. The ranch continued to prosper, adapting to the changing times while honoring the traditions Yates had established. In 1905, Vera and Daniel celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary. Their children organized a large party at the ranch, with family and friends coming from all over the territory. Vera was 47 now, her dark hair threaded with silver laugh lines crinkling around her eyes. Daniel was 57, still strong and capable, though his hair had gone white and his movements were a bit slower. They stood together in the barn where they had danced so many years ago, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and friends. Thomas raised a glass to toast them. "To my parents, Daniel and Vera Young, you have shown all of us what true love looks like. You have built a life together based on respect, hard work, and devotion. You have raised 5 children who are proud to call you Mom and Dad, and you have created a legacy that will endure for generations. We love you both so much." The crowd cheered, and Daniel pulled Vera into his arms, kissing her soundly despite the catcalls and laughter from their children. 30 years, he murmured against her hair, "and I still fall more in love with you every single day. We have been blessed," Vera said. So incredibly blessed. They danced that night like they were young again, moving together with the ease of 3 decades of partnership. Their children watched with smiles, seeing in their parents what they hoped to build in their own marriages. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Vera and Daniel walked back to their house hand in hand. It was a clear night, and the stars stretched overhead in a glittering canopy. "You ever think about that first day?" Daniel asked. "When you rode up in the wagon with Yates and I saw you for the first time. I think about it all the time. I was so scared and uncertain, and then you smiled at me, and I felt something shift inside. I did not know then that it was love, but looking back, I think maybe it was. It was for me. I took one look at you and knew my life had just changed forever." He stopped and turned to face her, cupping her face in his hands. "Thank you, Vera. Thank you for saying yes to me, for building this life with me, for giving me children and grandchildren and more happiness than any one man deserves." "You do not have to thank me. It has been my joy and my privilege." They stood there under the stars, 2 people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. The running eye stretched around them, a legacy of love and hard work, waiting for future generations to carry it forward. Years continued to pass, each one adding new chapters to the family story. Vera and Daniel welcomed more grandchildren, watched their children succeed and struggle and triumph. The ranch adapted to new technologies, bought its first automobile in 1910, installed electricity in 1912. But the core values remained the same, the ones Yates Ingram had established and Daniel and Vera had nurtured. In 1920, Vera and Daniel celebrated their 45th anniversary quietly, just the 2 of them on the porch of their home. They were older now, grandparents many times over, but the love between them had not dimmed. If anything, it had grown deeper and richer with time. "You have any regrets?" Vera asked, her head resting on Daniel's shoulder. "Not a single one. You?" "Only that Papa Yates did not live longer to see everything we have built, but I think he knows. I feel him sometimes, especially when I am riding through the canyon or watching the sunset from the porch. He is still here with us in a way." "I think so too. This ranch is his legacy as much as ours. We are just the caretakers, making sure it endures." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their grandchildren play in the yard. The running I had grown to over 50,000 acres now, one of the most successful ranches in New Mexico, which had finally achieved statehood in 1912. Thomas ran the day-to-day operations with help from James, while Sarah had become a teacher, and the twins had both married well and started families of their own. Daniel took Vera's hand, bringing it to his lips and kissing her knuckles gently. "I love you, Vera Young. I have loved you since the moment I saw you, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond. And I love you, Daniel Young. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, besides Papa Yates finding me in that stable all those years ago." As the sun set over the New Mexico landscape, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and crimson, Vera thought back to that desperate girl who had been cleaning stables for scraps. She could hardly recognize herself in that memory. She had been broken and alone, with no future to speak of. But Yates Ingram had seen something in her worth saving, and he had given her not just a home but a family. And from that gift, this beautiful life had grown. A husband who cherished her, children who made her proud, grandchildren who brought endless joy. A ranch that prospered and provided livelihoods for dozens of families. A legacy that would continue long after she and Daniel were gone. The girl who had been orphaned and alone had become a matriarch, beloved and respected. The rancher who had lost everything had rebuilt his family in a way he never expected. And the cowboy who had fallen in love at first sight had found his forever in the eyes of a starving girl in a borrowed dress. It was a story of second chances and chosen family, of love that transcended blood and circumstance. It was proof that sometimes the family you make is just as powerful as the family you are born into. And it all started in a stable in Sierra City, New Mexico Territory, on a hot June day in 1876, when one act of kindness changed the course of multiple lives forever. Vera and Daniel lived well into their 80s, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. When they finally passed, within months of each other as longtime couples sometimes do, their ashes were scattered on the running alongside Yates Ingram's. Three souls who had found each other when they needed it most, bound together by love and choice, forever part of the land they had built into something extraordinary. The running continued on, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own chapter to the story while honoring the foundation that Yates, Vera, and Daniel had laid. And if you visit there even today, locals will tell you that on quiet evenings, when the wind blows just right across the scrubland, you can sometimes feel the presence of those three original spirits, watching over the land and the family they created together. It was not the ending any of them could have predicted that day in the stable. It was so much better than that. It was a love story for the ages, born in the Wild West, and enduring through all the changes and challenges that came with building a life in an untamed land. It was proof that love comes in many forms, that family is what you make it, and that sometimes the most profound connections happen when we are brave enough to take a chance on each other. Vera had been cleaning stables for scraps, desperate and alone. Yates had made her his daughter that day, giving her a future she never could have imagined. And from that single act of compassion, a love story had unfolded, the kind that echoed through generations and proved that kindness, love, and family were the most powerful forces in the world.